Welcome back. Last week, we took you to our conversation with Hooman Keshavarzi at the Canadian Muslim Mental Health Conference about the Islamic integrative model of psychotherapy. Now that we've gotten a handle on the theory, let's go back and continue the discussion with Hooman about what this approach looks like on the ground. Hooman Keshavarzi is an adjunct professor at Argosy Chicago and is also the executive director and therapist at the Khalil Centre, a social and spiritual community wellness center. Here is the interview now. So welcome back to our show.
Thank you, Zakofen.
So I want to pick up right from where we left off last
Sure.
week. We talked about, you gave us the theory and sort of the, explained the Islamic integrative psychotherapy model. I know you work at you're the executive director at Khalil Centre.
Correct, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how, does the center use this practice now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So not only do we teach this model at conferences and have published on it, but we also have a team of clinicians, right?
Okay,
and
yeah.
so we do trainings, and some of the, I co-presented with Maulana Bilal, who is a religious theologian, and he heads a sort of religious consultations department. So there's a lot of collaboration between Islamic scholars and mental health providers in working towards really bouncing these ideas off and developing these standards of practice. And we serve on this model, so that we train and we teach people how to use it, and then we also use it ourselves. And we serve over 650 people in a given year. In Chicago alone, we have a Bay Area office that services, similar numbers.
And what are examples of some of the issues and cases that you see that come across your center?
So a lot of the people that come in, they specifically come in because of the fact that Khalil Centre integrates.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of data and research on, we gather data from the people that come in. So that's a lot of people, 650, 60 in a clinic, right? So then, okay, what is it? So let's learn a little bit about the nature of these individuals. Have they ever gone to psychological services before? Majority, over 75%, say no. Would they have gone anywhere had Khalil Centre not existed? Over 75% say no.
Interesting.
What is it that they want out of Khalil Centre? What is it that do they want Islam integrated into the process? Over 95% say yes. So this is a group of individuals that would never have gotten service and treatment elsewhere had there not been.
Yeah.
And so this isn't about just Khalil Centre, it's about the approach. When you can take the approach and make it indigenous and sort of inherent to the Islamic tradition and provide that language and destigmatize and work with the community, it's not only about providing access, but it's also engaging that community. So when you engage them, go to them through workshops and seminars and trainings, open those doors, then you kind of bring in a lot of people. So we see a lot of people who have anxiety cases and depressions and existential crises with. So, I have some anxiety cases. So we had an individual recently who has a depression, for example. Part of their depression, interestingly enough, is their sort of ideas, how they make meaning, so they believe that they're suffering. And they are suffering in life. They've gone through difficulty in life, poor marriage and all sorts of other things, which I don't really want to disclose too much about. And they believe that this is because of the fact that they disobeyed their father.
Interesting.
And from my understanding of the situation, the father was an abusive father. Maybe not so much physical, but definitely emotional and psychological. And he attempted to rob her of many of her rights. So she basically survived, stood up for herself, and did what she needed to do in order to survive. She became successful professionally and as an individual. And so she's got this clinical depression about the fact that all of my problems are as a result of this issue. And as a result, it interprets any of the situations, confirmation bias we call it. Any new situation, any suffering, see that's more evidence to gather.
Goes back to the original.
So we call this a negative attribution bias. A person has a sort of negative filter and lens. They come in with a particular idea, in this case an Islamically inaccurate one, right? Yeah. That then fuels the depression and the sadness of the emotion. That demotivates them from life and affects their spirituality because they don't feel like praying, right? So they don't pray salat and stuff like that. So what did we do? Well, we worked with sort of talking about the context and situation. Alhamdulillah, that was useful. Another layer that we could add to that is in-house we have religious theologians and religious consultation So we referred her to the religious consultation in communication with the therapist. Therapist is talking about what's going on. Given the background data, the clergy knows what's going on, comes in, and it's more, because she said to me, I need a religious authority. I need like somebody, like a mufti or a jurist or somebody who's sort of authorized to give rulings.
Yeah.
Fine. So we arranged for that, and she was able, and we worked in tandem, and he gave the fatwa basically to her, like an individualized fatwa. He kind of discuss her situation about what's okay for her to do, what's not okay for her to do, and how she needs to focus on self-care. But what are we doing here? We go back, it's i'tidal. In the model, i'tidal is a balance of the system, right?
Okay,
So we're balancing. So ad-dinu bayna al-khawfi wa raja, that religion is between fear and hope. So too much fear here.
Yeah.
What we needed to do is to compensate in the other direction, give more hope.
Yeah.
Okay?
So balance it out.
And so that's an example of, say, how do you utilize and bring Islamic theology and discussion into the mix within a framework of understanding what the problem is, what's the origin of the problem here.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and there's obviously, you know, various other issues like an OCD, waswasa. A person is always fearing that they broke their salah or their wudu or something like that.
Yeah. To the point where it messes up their life. Right?
Exactly. And so we need, and there's a whole religious discussion here about what they're accountable for and what they're not accountable for, which is in our sort of religious consultations element, which needs to be known. So it's important to be able to use that to inform the ethics of the practice.
Now I know this is in the US, so just out of curiosity, what is the one case that you see, the most common case that you see?
The most common thing that people come in with is relationships, marriage and divorce and couples. So why? Because people are vulnerable with mental health, and they're more quick to be able to say that somebody else has a problem, come fix them, right? So you come in for your relationship. The next, thing is anxiety disorders, which is very consistent with the prevalence of mental distress among and anxiety disorders in the general population. So in the U.S., for example, there's some studies to show that American Muslims have similar prevalence rates to the national average, which is about 18%, according to the National Institute of Mental Health, or not Muslim mental health.
I was gonna say,
And then there's another study, a Pew study poll that was done, a large sample of American Muslims, and they found that satisfaction with life and happiness among Muslims is slightly lower than the average, which is about 7 to 10% of the, which is sort of prevalence rates of depression among the normative population. And so the two combined amount for over 25%.
I hope this segment will raise a bit of awareness. So thank you so much for sharing such valuable information.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Jazakumullah khair.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.